Commander Sinax gripped the controls of his damaged fighter ship as alarms blared in the cockpit. Warning lights flashed red, casting an eerie glow over his face. He had been flying a routine reconnaissance mission near the edge of human-controlled space when enemy drones ambushed him. Outnumbered and outgunned, he barely managed to evade their attacks by weaving through asteroid fields. But one lucky shot had hit his engine, leaving him with no choice but to crash land on the nearest planet. As the ship descended into the atmosphere, Sinax scanned the terrain below. Dense jungle stretched endlessly beneath thick clouds, broken only by jagged mountain peaks. His sensors picked up signs of life. Advanced structures hidden under layers of vegetation, but there was no time to analyze further. The ground rushed toward him at alarming speed, and he braced himself for impact. The crash sent shockwaves rippling through the forest. Trees splintered and fell as metal screeched against earth. For a moment, everything went silent. Then, groaning, Sinax unbuckled himself from the seat and stumbled out of the wreckage. Smoke billowed around him, stinging his eyes and lungs. Blood trickled down his temple from a gash caused by the violent landing, but he forced himself to focus. Survival came first. He surveyed the area cautiously, scanning for threats. The air smelled strange, earthy yet metallic, and the humidity clung to his skin like a second layer. Strange bird-like creatures flitted between branches overhead, their calls echoing eerily through the dense foliage. Despite the alien surroundings, something about the place felt alive. It wasn't just the wildlife. It was as if the very land itself watched him. Sinax didn't have much time to think before he heard movement nearby. Heavy footsteps approached, accompanied by low growls. Instinctively, he reached for his sidearm, but his holster was empty. It must have fallen loose during the crash. Cursing under his breath, he grabbed a piece of jagged metal from the debris instead, ready to defend himself. From the shadows emerged figures unlike anything Sinax had ever seen. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in shimmering armor that seemed to shift colors depending on how the light hit them. Their faces were angular, almost insectoid, with glowing amber eyes that pierced through the gloom. One of them stepped forward, pointing what appeared to be some kind of weapon at Sinax. "Identify yourself," a deep voice boomed, resonating directly in his mind rather than through his ears. The language was unfamiliar, yet somehow comprehensible. "I'm Commander Sinax of the Interstellar Defense Coalition," he replied steadily, holding his makeshift weapon tightly. "I mean no harm." The leader tilted its head slightly, studying him with an unsettling intensity. After a moment, it lowered its weapon and signaled to the others. 2 more aliens moved closer, examining the wreckage while speaking rapidly in their melodic tongue. Sinax realized they weren't hostile, at least not immediately, but that didn't mean he was safe. Minutes later, he found himself surrounded and escorted deeper into the jungle. The group traveled swiftly, leaping over fallen logs and navigating the terrain with ease. Sinax struggled to keep up, his injured leg protesting every step. Still, he remained alert, observing everything around him. The forest grew denser, and soon they entered a clearing dominated by towering spires made of translucent material. Light pulsed gently within them, giving the impression of living architecture. At the center of the settlement stood a massive palace carved into the base of a mountain. Its design blended seamlessly with the natural landscape, making it seem less like a building and more like part of the environment itself. As they approached, guards stationed outside saluted the leader. Clearly, these beings operated under strict hierarchy. Inside the palace, Sinax was brought before a figure seated on a throne elevated above the rest of the room. This alien dwarfed even the warriors who had captured him. His armor gleamed brighter than anyone else's, adorned with intricate patterns etched into the surface. A crown-like structure rested atop his head, radiating faint energy waves. This was King Vorthan, ruler of the Zenari Empire. "You are fortunate to stand here today, human," the king said, his voice commanding authority without raising its tone. Your arrival is unprecedented. Explain your purpose. Sinax swallowed hard but kept his composure. I was on a mission when my ship was attacked. I crashed here by chance, Your Majesty. Vorthin narrowed his eyes, considering this explanation. Then, unexpectedly, he chuckled, a sound both menacing and amused. By chance. No, you are here because fate has deemed it so. He leaned forward slightly, fixing Sinax with an intense gaze. You see, I have a rebellious daughter who refuses to submit to her duties as heir. She challenges my rule at every turn. Perhaps you can teach her obedience. Before Sinax could respond, 2 guards dragged someone into the chamber. It was a young woman, her posture defiant despite her restraints. Her features bore resemblance to the king's angular build, though softer. Her piercing green eyes locked onto Sinax's, filled with equal parts anger and curiosity. This is Princess Lysara, Vorthin announced. In return for sparing your life, you will marry her. Should you refuse? He let the sentence hang ominously. Lysara glared daggers at her father, then turned her fiery gaze to Sinax. I won't accept this mockery, she spat. And neither should you. But Sinax knew he had little choice. Refusing meant certain death, and surviving long enough to find help might still give him a chance to escape. With a resigned nod, he agreed. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it, one challenge at a time. The grand hall fell silent as King Vorthin's decree echoed through the chamber. Princess Lysara's sharp intake of breath broke the tension, her emerald eyes blazing with fury. She yanked her arm free from the guard's grip and stepped forward, glaring at her father. This is absurd, she exclaimed, her voice ringing clear and defiant. You think binding me to a human will solve anything? It's an insult to me, to our people, and to everything we stand for. Vorthin remained unmoved, his expression cold and calculating. You leave me no choice, Lysara. Your constant rebellion has become tiresome. Perhaps this arrangement will teach you humility. Lysara clenched her fists but said nothing more, knowing better than to argue further in front of the court. Instead, she turned her piercing gaze towards Sinax, who stood awkwardly beside her. His face was calm, though his knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of his torn jacket. And what about him? She demanded, gesturing sharply. Does he even understand what he's agreeing to? Or are you throwing us both into this without a second thought? Sinax cleared his throat, forcing himself to speak despite the weight of everyone's stares. I may not fully understand your customs, Your Highness, he began, addressing Lysara directly. But I do know survival when I see it. If this is the condition for my life, then so be it. His tone was steady, though there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. Lysara studied him for a moment, searching for any sign of mockery or deceit. To her surprise, she found none, only quiet determination. Fine, she muttered finally, crossing her arms over her chest. But don't expect me to make this easy for you, or for him. Her last words were directed pointedly at her father. King Vorthin rose from his throne, towering over them both. Enough. The ceremony will take place at dawn. Until then, show Commander Sinax to his quarters. As for you, Lysara, he paused, fixing her with a stern look. Behave yourself. With that, the king swept out of the room, followed by his entourage. The guards released Lysara, who stormed off in the opposite direction without another word. Sinax watched her go, feeling a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Despite her hostility, there was something compelling about her, a fire that refused to be extinguished. Later that evening, Sinax found himself alone in a lavishly decorated chamber. The walls shimmered faintly, embedded with tiny crystals that reflected soft light. A large bed dominated one side of the room, while intricate carvings adorned every surface. Though the accommodations were luxurious, they offered little comfort. His mind raced with questions. What had he gotten himself into? Could he really adapt to life among these alien beings? And most importantly, how could he possibly coexist with someone as fiercely independent as Lysara? A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. When he opened it, he was surprised to find Lizara standing there, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. "I need to talk to you," she said bluntly, brushing past him into the room. "We need to set some ground rules." Sinax closed the door and turned to face her. "All right, let's hear them." She spun around, her green eyes locking onto his. "First, this marriage is purely ceremonial. Don't think for a second that this makes you my equal or my master. I answer to no one." He raised his hands in surrender. "Understood. I have no intention of controlling you." Her brow furrowed slightly, as if his response caught her off guard. "Good. Second, stay out of my way unless absolutely necessary. I have responsibilities here, and I won't let you interfere." "Fair enough," Sinax replied. "But just so we're clear, I'm not exactly thrilled about this situation either. I didn't ask to crash land here, and I certainly didn't ask to marry you. This is survival, plain and simple." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Lizara's shoulders relaxed, and a hint of a smirk tugged at the corner of her lips. "At least you're honest. That's refreshing." Sinax blinked, unsure how to respond. Thanks," she sighed, pacing across the room. "Look, I don't trust you. That's obvious. But if we're going to pull this off, we'll need to work together, at least until you figure out how to get back to wherever you came from." "That works for me," Sinax said cautiously. "Though I should warn you, I might not be leaving anytime soon. My ship was destroyed, and repairing it won't be easy." Lizara stopped mid-step, turning to face him again. "Destroyed? So you're stuck here indefinitely?" "It would seem that way," he admitted. "Unless your people can help me repair it, or build me a new one, I'm not going anywhere." Her expression darkened. "Great. Just what I needed. A permanent houseguest." Despite her sarcasm, Sinax couldn't help but notice a flicker of intrigue in her eyes. For all her bravado, she seemed genuinely curious about him, and perhaps even a little intrigued by the idea of having an outsider in their midst. "Well," she said after a pause, "if you're staying, you'll need to learn our ways. You can't just wander around like some clueless tourist. People already resent the fact that Father brought a human into our world. If you want to survive, you'll need to earn their respect." Sinax nodded slowly. "Then teach me. Show me what I need to do." To his surprise, Lizara actually smiled. A small, reluctant smile, but a smile nonetheless. "All right, Commander. Consider this your first lesson. Never underestimate the Scifi. We're stronger, faster, and smarter than most species. If you want to keep up, you'll have to prove yourself." "Challenge accepted," Sinax replied, allowing himself a brief grin. "But fair warning, humans are pretty resourceful too." Lizara arched an eyebrow. "We'll see about that." As she left the room, Sinax felt a strange sense of relief. Though their relationship was far from friendly, there was potential for understanding, if not outright cooperation. For now, that was enough. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, starting with the wedding ceremony. But for the first time since crashing on this alien planet, Sinax felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, things weren't as hopeless as they seemed. The dawn arrived too quickly for Sinax's liking. As sunlight filtered through the translucent spires of the Scifi Palace, he stood in a ceremonial chamber alongside Lizara. The air buzzed with anticipation as courtiers, nobles, and warriors gathered to witness the union between a human and the rebellious princess. Though the ceremony was brief, marked by ancient rituals and exchanges of vows, it left Sinax feeling more like a pawn than ever before. Afterward, the newlyweds were ushered into separate quarters, each expected to fulfill their duties independently. For Lizara, this meant attending council meetings and addressing petitions from her people. For Sinax, it meant learning the customs and language of the Scifi, a task assigned to him by King Vorthan himself. Despite their shared disdain for the situation, they found themselves crossing paths frequently, whether during meals or in the palace corridors. Over time, Synax began to notice subtle changes in Lizara's demeanor. While she still treated him with guarded indifference, there were moments when her curiosity got the better of her. She would ask questions about Earth, its culture, and how humans managed to survive in such a vast universe. Synax answered honestly, sharing stories of his home planet and the challenges humanity faced. In return, Lizara offered glimpses into Zenari history, revealing tales of triumphs and tragedies that shaped their empire. But not everyone welcomed their growing rapport. Whispers spread throughout the palace, fueled by those who resented the presence of a human in their sacred halls. Some accused Lizara of conspiring with Synax to undermine the king's authority, while others saw their marriage as proof of Vorthan's weakness. Among these dissenters was Lord Kalis, a high-ranking noble known for his ambition and loyalty to tradition. One evening, Synax overheard fragments of conversation while wandering the palace gardens. Hidden behind a cluster of glowing plants, he listened as Kalis spoke with several other nobles. "This alliance is an insult to our people," Kalis hissed, his voice low but venomous. "A human, bound to the royal line. It's unacceptable. What do you propose we do?" One of the others asked cautiously. Kalis smirked. "We act before it's too late. If the king won't see reason, then perhaps it's time someone reminded him where true power lies." Synax's heart raced as he processed the implications. He knew he had to warn Lizara, but first, he needed evidence. Quietly slipping away, he returned to his chambers and jotted down notes, piecing together what he'd heard. Later that night, Synax approached Lizara in the library, where she often spent hours studying ancient texts. She looked up from a massive tome, her brow furrowed in concentration. "What is it?" she asked, closing the book with a soft thud. "I think we have a problem," Synax said, lowering his voice. "I overheard some of your nobles plotting against your father and us." Lizara frowned, leaning back in her chair. "Who?" "Lord Kalis and his allies. They're calling our marriage a disgrace and planning something big. I'm not sure what yet, but it can't be good." For a moment, Lizara stared at him, weighing his words. Then, sighing deeply, she rubbed her temples. "This isn't surprising. Kalis has always been jealous of my position. But if they're targeting you too, it means we're both in danger." Synax finished for her. Lizara nodded grimly. "We need to be careful. If father finds out about this, he'll crush them without hesitation. But involving him could make things worse." "So what do we do?" Synax pressed. Her eyes hardened with resolve. "We gather proof. If we can expose their plans, we might be able to turn the tables on them." The next few days were tense. Synax and Lizara worked together in secret, observing the conspirators closely. They discovered that Kalis held clandestine meetings in secluded parts of the palace, recruiting supporters and devising strategies. Meanwhile, rumors continued to circulate, painting Synax as a puppet master manipulating Lizara to seize control of the throne. Things came to a head one night when assassins infiltrated the palace. Synax was returning to his quarters when shadows moved in the dimly lit hallway. Before he could react, 3 figures lunged at him, weapons drawn. Panic surged through him, but years of military training kicked in. He dodged the first strike, grabbing a decorative blade from the wall to defend himself. Just as the odds seemed insurmountable, a flash of green light illuminated the corridor. Lizara appeared, wielding a sleek energy staff. With swift, precise movements, she disarmed one attacker and incapacitated another. The third fled into the darkness, leaving behind only silence. Breathing heavily, Synax turned to her. "You saved me." She shrugged, though her hands trembled slightly. "Don't get used to it. I couldn't let them kill you. Not now." They exchanged a long look, understanding passing between them. Whatever barriers had existed between them were crumbling under the weight of shared danger. Back in Lizara's private study, they devised a plan. Using information gleaned from the assassination attempt, they identified key members of the conspiracy and mapped out their connections. Lysara suggested planting false evidence to lure Callus into exposing his hand. It's risky, Synax admitted, if he catches on. He won't, Lysara interrupted firmly. Not if we play our cards right. As they worked side by side, their bond deepened. Synax admired Lysara's intelligence and courage, while she began to trust him more fully. Though neither voiced it aloud, they both felt the shift, a quiet acknowledgement that they were stronger together than apart. When the trap was set, they waited anxiously for Callus to take the bait. The stakes were higher than ever, but one thing was certain: their fates were intertwined, for better or worse. The trap was set, and the tension in the palace was palpable. Lysara and Synax had spent hours preparing for this moment, carefully planting false documents implicating Lord Callus in a plot to overthrow King Vorthan. Their plan hinged on luring him into revealing his true intentions during a private meeting with the king, a meeting they ensured would be monitored closely. As dawn broke over the shimmering spires of the Zenari capital, guards escorted Callus to the throne room. His expression remained calm, but there was a flicker of unease in his amber eyes as he entered. The grand chamber was eerily quiet, save for the soft hum of energy emanating from the walls. King Vorthan sat atop his elevated throne, flanked by advisors and warriors. To one side stood Lysara, her posture rigid and commanding. Beside her, though slightly more subdued, was Synax. Lord Callus, Vorthan began, his voice echoing through the vast space. You have been summoned here today to address certain rumors regarding your loyalty. Callus bowed low, feigning humility. Your Majesty, I assure you that my allegiance has never wavered. These accusations are baseless lies meant to tarnish my reputation. Vorthan leaned forward, his piercing gaze fixed on the nobleman. Then perhaps you can explain why evidence suggests otherwise. He gestured to a holographic display that materialized before them, showing forged messages detailing plans to assassinate both the king and Synax. For a split second, Callus faltered, his mask slipping, but he quickly recovered, straightening his stance. This is absurd. Someone seeks to frame me. Your Majesty, I beg you, investigate further. You will find no truth in these claims. Lysara stepped forward, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. Enough excuses, Callus. My husband. She emphasized the word deliberately. And I uncovered evidence linking you not only to these plots, but also to whispers of rebellion among the nobles. Deny it all you want, but the proof speaks for itself. Synax watched silently, impressed by how seamlessly Lysara played her role. Her words carried authority, leaving little room for doubt. Yet beneath her confident exterior, he sensed her nerves. This gamble could either solidify their position or destroy them completely. Callus clenched his fists, his composure cracking under pressure. You dare accuse me based on fabricated nonsense. Fine. If this is the path you choose, know that history will judge you harshly. Mark my words, the people will rise against such injustice. With that, he stormed out of the chamber, his retinue trailing behind him. The room fell silent, the weight of his threat hanging heavy in the air. Vorthan's expression darkened, and he turned to Lysara and Synax. Well done, he said curtly, but this is far from over. Be prepared, for Callus will not stop until he achieves his goals. Later that evening, Synax and Lysara met in a secluded garden, away from prying eyes. Moonlight bathed the glowing plants in silver hues, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere. They sat together on a stone bench, exhaustion evident in their faces. He's dangerous, Lysara murmured, breaking the silence. More so now that we've backed him into a corner. Synax nodded, leaning back against the cool stone. We knew this wouldn't end easily, but at least we forced his hand. Now we just need to stay one step ahead. Lysara glanced at him, her green eyes reflecting concern. And what about you? Are you ready for what comes next? Because once Callus retaliates, things will get worse before they get better. Synax met her gaze, his resolve unwavering. I didn't come this far to give up now. Besides, he hesitated, then added softly, I trust you, and I think you trust me too. Her lips curved into a faint smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. Don't let it go to your head, Commander. Despite her sharp tone, there was warmth in her words, a sign of the growing bond between them. Over the past weeks, they had transitioned from reluctant allies to something deeper, though neither dared to name it yet. For now, survival took precedence. Their fragile peace was shattered days later when chaos erupted within the palace. A group of armed rebels, loyal to Callus, launched a surprise attack during a diplomatic gathering. Explosions rocked the halls, sending guests fleeing in panic. Smoke filled the corridors as alarms blared throughout the structure. Sinax and Lazara were separated in the confusion, each fighting to protect innocent lives. Sinax wielded a stolen energy weapon, taking down attackers with precision honed from years of combat training. Meanwhile, Lazara moved like a force of nature, her staff crackling with power as she cleared paths for civilians to escape. At one point, Sinax found himself cornered in a narrow passageway, outnumbered by enemies. Just as he thought he'd reached his limit, a streak of green light cut through the fray. Lazara appeared, her presence electrifying. Together, they fought side by side, their movements synchronized as if they'd trained together for years. When the dust settled, the rebels were subdued, and Callus himself was captured attempting to flee. As he was dragged before King Vorthan, his face twisted with hatred. You may win this battle, he spat, glaring at Lazara and Sinax, but the people will never accept a human ruling alongside us. His words sent a ripple through the court, but Vorthan silenced him with a single raised hand. Take him away. His treachery ends here. In the aftermath, Sinax and Lazara retreated to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The damage to the palace was extensive, but the real toll lay in a fractured trust among the Zenari people. Whispers of dissent still lingered, fueled by fear and prejudice. What happens now? Sinax asked, staring out at the horizon. Lazara sighed, resting her arms on the railing. Now we rebuild, not just the palace, but trust, unity, everything. He looked at her, seeing the weight of responsibility etched into her features. You don't have to do it alone. I'm here. She glanced at him, surprise flickering across her face. Then, slowly, she smiled. A genuine, heartfelt smile. For once, Commander, I believe you. Though challenges loomed ahead, they faced them together, bound not only by duty but by a shared vision of hope. The aftermath of the rebel attack left the Zenari capital scared both physically and emotionally. Repairs to the palace were underway, but the damage went deeper than shattered spires and scorched walls. Trust among the people had been shaken, and whispers of dissent continued to spread like wildfire. Some viewed Sinax as a symbol of weakness, a foreigner thrust into their sacred hierarchy, while others saw him as proof of King Vorthan's willingness to compromise tradition for survival. For Lazara, the pressure mounted. As heir to the throne, she was expected to unite her fractured people, yet many doubted her ability to lead alongside a human. Even those who supported her questioned whether her alliance with Sinax was genuine or merely a political maneuver. The weight of these expectations weighed heavily on her, evident in the dark circles under her eyes and the tension in her jaw whenever she addressed the court. Sinax noticed the toll it took on her. He often caught her staring out at the city from her private balcony, lost in thought. Though he wanted to offer comfort, he hesitated, unsure if his presence would be welcome. Their bond had grown stronger through shared battles and mutual trust, but old habits died hard. Lazara still struggled to let anyone, even him, see her vulnerabilities. One evening, as the twin moons cast an ethereal glow over the landscape, Sinax approached her cautiously. She stood alone on the balcony, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. You should rest, he said gently. You've been pushing yourself too hard. She didn't turn to face him immediately, but when she did, her expression softened slightly. Rest won't change anything, Sinax. Every decision I make is scrutinized. Every move we take is judged. It feels like we're fighting a losing battle. He stepped closer, leaning against the railing beside her. Then maybe it's time we stop trying to fight everyone else's battles and focused on what matters most. Your vision, for unity, for fairness, that's worth fighting for, not their approval. Her lips curved into a faint smile, though sadness lingered in her eyes. Easier said than done. Maybe, he admitted, but you're not alone in this. Whatever happens, I got your back. His words seemed to ease some of the tension in her shoulders. For a moment, they simply stood there, gazing out at the city bathed in moonlight. Then, abruptly, Lizara turned to him, her gaze sharp and determined. "There's something I need to show you," she said, "something that might help us turn things around." The next morning, Lizara led Sinax deep into the wilderness surrounding the capital. They traveled light, accompanied only by a small escort of loyal guards. The journey took them through dense forests, across roaring rivers, and finally to the foot of a towering mountain shrouded in mist. At its base lay the entrance to an ancient temple, its stone facade adorned with intricate carvings depicting scenes of harmony between species. "This place is sacred," Lizara explained as they approached. "It predates even our earliest records. Legend says it holds artifacts capable of bridging divides. Between races, ideologies, everything." Sinax studied the temple with awe. "And you think we can use it to unite your people?" "It's risky," she admitted. "The temple is said to be guarded by spirits of the old gods. Only those pure of heart can enter without consequence. But if we succeed—" Her voice trailed off, but Sinax understood. Success could mean rallying enough support to silence Callus's lingering influence and solidify their leadership. Failure, however, could cost them everything. As they entered the temple, the air grew colder, tinged with an otherworldly energy. The interior was dimly lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced across the floor. Strange symbols lined the corridors, pulsating faintly as they passed. They reached a central chamber dominated by a massive pedestal atop which rested a crystalline orb. Its surface shimmered with colors that shifted and swirled like liquid light. Lizara approached it cautiously, her hand hovering above the artifact. "This is it," she whispered, "the heart of unity." Before she could touch it, the ground trembled and a deep voice resonated through the chamber. "Who dares disturb the resting place of the gods?" A figure materialized before them, a translucent being radiating power. Its form was humanoid yet fluid, constantly shifting and reforming. Eyes like molten gold fixed on Lizara and Sinax. "We seek the heart of unity," Lizara declared, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "To heal divisions within my people and forge a new path forward." The spirit regarded them silently, then turned its gaze to Sinax. "And you, outsider, what do you seek?" Sinax swallowed hard, meeting its piercing stare. "I seek understanding, to bridge the gap between humans and Zanari, so neither side sees the other as an enemy." The spirit paused, as if weighing their intentions. Finally, it spoke again. "The heart will test you. Only by proving yourselves worthy can you claim its power." With that, the chamber transformed. Walls dissolved into illusions, each depicting scenarios designed to challenge their resolve. Sinax faced visions of Earth crumbling under alien invasion, forcing him to confront his fears of failure. Lizara endured trials where her father disowned her, testing her commitment to her ideals over familial loyalty. Through sheer determination, they navigated the trials together, supporting one another when doubt crept in. When the final illusion faded, the spirit reappeared, nodding approvingly. "You have proven yourselves," it intoned. "Take the heart, but remember, its power lies not in domination, but in cooperation." Lizara carefully lifted the orb, feeling its warmth pulse in her hands. As they exited the temple, the sun broke through the clouds, bathing them in golden light. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered brightly within them. Back at the palace, they began implementing their plan. Using the heart's energy, they organized gatherings where citizens could voice grievances and propose solutions. Slowly but surely, divisions began to mend, replaced by a fragile yet growing sense of unity. Though challenges remained, Sinax and Lizara faced them together, their bond unshakable. In each other, they found not just allies, but partners in creating a better future for themselves and for their people. The heart of unity became a beacon of hope, its radiant energy spreading throughout the Zenari Empire. Under Lizara's leadership and Sinax's guidance, the artifact was used to foster dialogue between factions that had long been at odds. Town halls were organized in every major city, where citizens could voice their concerns without fear of retribution. The once hostile nobles who had supported Lord Kalis began to soften their stance, swayed by the tangible changes brought about by unity rather than division. But even as progress unfolded, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Though many embraced the new era of cooperation, others clung to old prejudices. Whispers of rebellion persisted, fueled by remnants of Kalis's network operating in secret. Some viewed the heart not as a tool for peace, but as a symbol of weakness, a concession to humanity that undermined Zenari pride. For Sinax, the weight of being an outsider never truly lifted. Despite his efforts to integrate into Zenari society, he often felt like a shadow walking among giants. His presence continued to ignite heated debates in council chambers and marketplaces alike. Yet he refused to let doubt consume him. Every insult hurled his way only strengthened his resolve to prove that humans and Zenari could coexist. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of negotiations, Sinax found himself alone in the palace archives. He wandered among rows of ancient scrolls and holographic records, seeking solace in knowledge. As he browsed, one particular text caught his eye, a faded manuscript detailing the origins of the Heart of Unity. Intrigued, he unrolled it carefully, scanning the delicate script. According to the document, the heart wasn't just a relic of harmony. It also served as a conduit for immense power. If misused, it could unleash chaos capable of tearing apart entire civilizations. The text warned that the artifact's true potential would awaken only when wielded by someone with unwavering conviction, and that such power came at a cost. Sinax's heart raced as he absorbed the implications. Could this be why some still resisted? Were they afraid of what the heart might become if placed in the wrong hands? Or worse, did they plan to seize it themselves? Before he could dwell further on these thoughts, footsteps echoed through the chamber. Turning quickly, he saw Lizara entering, her expression weary but resolute. "What are you doing here?" she asked, though her tone held no accusation. "Research," Sinax replied, holding up the scroll. "I think we need to talk." He explained what he'd discovered, watching as understanding dawned in her eyes. "If people learn about this," she began, trailing off, "they'll panic or try to take it from us." Sinax finished grimly. "Either way, we can't afford to lose control of the heart now." Lizara nodded slowly, her mind racing. "Then we have to act fast. We need to show everyone that the heart is safe with us, not because of power, but because of purpose." The next morning, they called an emergency assembly in the Grand Hall. Nobles, warriors, and commoners alike gathered, curiosity mingling with suspicion. At the center of the room stood the Heart of Unity, its glow casting soft light over the crowd. Lizara stepped forward, her voice ringing clear and commanding. "Many of you question whether the heart belongs in our hands. You fear its power, or resent the role my husband has played in shaping our future. Today, I ask you to set aside those doubts and listen." She gestured to Sinax, who joined her at the podium. Together, they recounted their journey, the trials they faced, the sacrifices they made, and the vision they shared for a united Zenari Empire. They spoke not of domination or conquest, but of collaboration and mutual respect. When they finished, silence filled the hall. Then, unexpectedly, A young warrior rose from the crowd. You speak of unity, but how do we know your intentions are pure? How do we know you won't use the heart against us? Sinax stepped forward, meeting the warrior's gaze. Because I've seen what happens when fear drives decisions. On Earth, we've fought wars over differences far smaller than those dividing us now. But I've also seen moments of peace, when people chose to work together instead of tearing each other apart. That's what we're trying to build here. The warrior hesitated, then nodded curtly before sitting back down. Others followed suit, murmuring amongst themselves. While not everyone was convinced, enough voices shifted to signal a turning point. That night, however, danger struck again. A group of insurgents infiltrated the palace, targeting the heart itself. Alarms blared as guards rushed to contain the threat, but the attackers were well prepared. Explosions rocked the corridors, sending debris flying. Sinax and Lizara sprinted toward the grand hall, dodging falling rubble and enemy fire. When they arrived, they found the heart surrounded by cloaked figures attempting to pry it loose from its pedestal. Without hesitation, Lizara unleashed a wave of energy from her staff, scattering the intruders. Sinax joined the fray, using his combat skills to disarm and subdue them one by one. As the last attacker fell, a figure emerged from the shadows, none other than Lord Kellis himself. His face twisted with rage, he lunged at Lizara, knocking her to the ground. Sinax tackled him mid-stride, grappling fiercely. The two men rolled across the floor, trading blows until Sinax managed to pin Kellis down. You'll never win, Kellis snarled, spitting blood. Even if you stop me, there will always be others who see you as weak. And yet, here we are. Sinax shot back, tightening his grip. Still standing. Guards arrived moments later, dragging Kellis away. As order was restored, Lizara approached Sinax, her expression a mixture of gratitude and admiration. You saved the heart, she said softly. We saved it, he corrected, offering a small smile. Together. Though the immediate threat had passed, the incident served as a stark reminder of the challenges ahead. The heart of unity remained both a blessing and a burden, a symbol of hope for some and a target for others. But Sinax and Lizara stood firm, determined to protect their fragile alliance. As they stood side by side, gazing at the glowing artifact, they knew the road ahead would be fraught with obstacles. Yet, for the first time, neither felt alone. Together, they carried the weight of a legacy and the promise of a brighter future. The aftermath of the attack left scars, both physical and emotional, on the Zenari Empire. Repairs to the palace were underway once again, but the real healing required more than rebuilding walls. It demanded trust, understanding, and a shared vision for the future. For Lizara and Sinax, the battle had solidified their resolve. They knew that unity wasn't just about quelling dissent, it was about inspiring hope. In the days following the assault, King Vorthan summoned his daughter and son-in-law to the throne room. His expression was uncharacteristically somber as he addressed them. You've proven yourselves worthy of leadership, he began, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. But the path ahead will not be easy. Kellis may have failed, but his ideology lives on in those who fear change. You must act decisively, or risk losing everything. Lizara nodded firmly. We understand, Father, and we're ready. Sinax stepped forward, meeting the king's gaze. Your Majesty, I didn't choose this life, but I've embraced it because I believe in what we can achieve together. The heart of unity isn't just a relic, it's a symbol of possibility. If we use it wisely, we can create something greater than any of us imagined. Vorthan studied him for a long moment before nodding. Very well. Then let history remember you both, not as rulers imposed upon the people, but as leaders who earned their loyalty. With the king's blessing, Lizara and Sinax prepared for their final push to unite the empire. They organized a grand assembly in the capital's central plaza, inviting citizens from all walks of life. Warriors, scholars, merchants, farmers, even former allies of Kellis were encouraged to attend. The stage was set beneath the towering spires of the city, adorned with banners depicting intertwined human and Scifi symbols. As the crowd gathered, murmurs rippled through the air. Some came out of curiosity, others out of obligation, and a few out of lingering skepticism. But when Lizara and Sinax appeared together, the plaza fell silent. Lizara stepped forward first, her presence commanding yet compassionate. "Today marks a new chapter for our people," she began, her voice carrying over the sea of faces. "For too long, we've allowed fear and division to guide us. We've clung to traditions that no longer serve us, while rejecting opportunities for growth. But no more." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "The heart of unity has shown us what is possible when we work together, not as conquerors or rivals, but as equals. My husband," she emphasized the word deliberately, "and I stand before you not as rulers, but as partners committed to building a brighter future for everyone." Sinax took her place at the podium, his tone steady and sincere. "I know many of you doubted me when I first arrived. I don't blame you. I'm an outsider, and outsiders are often seen as threats. But I ask you to look beyond appearances. Look at what we've accomplished together. Look at how far we've come." He gestured toward the heart, which pulsed softly nearby. "This artifact isn't mine or Lizara's. It belongs to all of you. Its power lies in cooperation, not control. Together, we can forge a world where differences are celebrated, not feared." The crowd erupted into applause, cheers mingling with tears. Even skeptics found themselves moved by the sincerity in their voices. For the first time, the idea of humans and Scifi standing side by side didn't seem so impossible. Days turned into weeks as Lizara and Sinax worked tirelessly to implement reforms. They established councils representing diverse voices, ensuring every faction had a say in shaping policies. Trade agreements were forged with neighboring planets, strengthening alliances and fostering economic growth. Education programs promoted cross-cultural understanding, teaching children about the value of collaboration. Yet, challenges persisted. Isolated attacks by remnants of Callus's followers served as reminders that change wouldn't happen overnight. But each incident only strengthened the resolve of those fighting for unity. Lizara and Sinax led by example, facing adversity head-on and refusing to back down. One evening, as they stood together on the balcony overlooking the capital, Lizara sighed contentedly. "It's working," she said softly. "People are starting to believe in us." Sinax smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Because they see how much we believe in them." She leaned into him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the twin moons. "Do you ever wonder what comes next? What happens after we've rebuilt?" He thought for a moment before replying. "I think about Earth sometimes, about bridging the gap between our worlds, not just politically, but personally. Imagine if humans and Scifi could explore the stars together, learning from each other instead of fearing one another." Her lips curved into a smile. "That sounds like a dream worth chasing." Months later, Lizara ascended to the throne as queen of the Scifi Empire, with Sinax by her side as co-ruler. Their coronation was a celebration unlike anything the galaxy had seen, a fusion of human and Scifi traditions, symbolizing the harmony they'd fought so hard to achieve. King Vorthan watched proudly from the sidelines, his stern demeanor softened by pride. "You've done well," he told them afterward. "Better than I could have hoped." As the festivities continued late into the night, Lizara and Sinax slipped away to a quiet corner of the palace gardens. Surrounded by glowing plants and the gentle hum of nocturnal creatures, they reflected on their journey. "We've come a long way," Sinax mused, gazing up at the stars. "And we still have farther to go," Lizara added. "But as long as we face it together, I think we'll be all right." They shared a quiet laugh, their bond stronger than ever. Though challenges lay ahead, they faced them not as individuals, but as a team united by purpose and love. Together, they carried the legacy of unity, not just for the Scifi, but for all beings across the galaxy. Under their leadership, a new dawn rose, one filled with promise, hope, and endless possibilities.